edition of the Mindset Game podcast, and I'm your host, James Roberts. I'm a two-time Paralympian, online training and nutrition coach, and owner of James Robert Fitness. You can find more of my content by going to my website, fitamputee.co.uk. But before we get started with today's show, first off, let me take this opportunity to welcome back the regular listeners. And if this is your first time listening to the show, I hope you enjoy this episode and decide to subscribe to the show. And on today's show, I've got Dave Stevens. He was born without legs in the 1960s, was put up for adoption, and was raised by two loving and supportive parents who instilled core values that helped make him the man he is today. In the years before adaptive sports, he decided to play able-bodied sports and become a pioneer in his home state of Arizona. Dave attended elementary school in Washington Elementary School District in Phoenix and was a student at Mountain View, Sunnyslope and Desert Foothills schools. Dave played basketball, floor hockey, volleyball, softball, and every sport possible before becoming a free sport varsity athlete at Wickenburg High School in Wickenburg, Arizona. After numerous national articles and featured appearances on ABC's That's Incredible, he was awarded a scholarship to Augsburg College in Minnesota. It was here that he became the only legless player in college football history. His success eventually led to tryout with the Dallas Cowboys and representing Team USA, playing football in New Zealand, Australia, and Ireland. Dave's love for baseball also led him to tryouts with the 1984 Olympic baseball team, the Cincinnati Reds, and the Minnesota Twins. In 1996, Dave again reached another milestone, signing a 3-week contract with minor league baseball team, the St. Paul Saints, being the only legless athlete to ever achieve that. Off the field, Dave enjoyed a 30-plus year in sports broadcasting, with duties ranging from reporter to video editor to producer. He spent 20-plus years working at ESPN, where he earned 7 national sports Emmys. He has covered the Super Bowl, World Series, Final Four, and anything in between. So welcome onto the show, Dave.
Wow, that's quite an intro. Thank you very much. I hope we still have fans out there listening.
Well, reading the whole bio itself, it is quite a mindful, and you achieved quite a lot in, well, off the top of my head, it's about a 50-year lifespan.
Yeah, I'm so blessed. I'm really lucky, and to have the fortitude that my adoptive parents instilled in me to let my disability become my ability, and I really was able to use it because in those days, back in the 60s, back in olden times, before many of your audience was even born, they still would take somebody with a disability and institutionalize them and put them in like a hospital with just everybody that was just thought of as a burden on society. Parents would have that option. So I'm very lucky that not only was I put up for adoption, but with two people that really cared, and realized that there was something special in me, I guess, to help me, to guide me wherever that was going to go, and they both passed away before they got to see me get to the epitome of the career that I've had. But, I've kept them with me the entire way.
And kind of going back to the early days now, Dave, what was kind of the feeling, the feeling behind wanting to try every sport under the sun?
Well, when you have what they call a disability, and I hate that word. I hate handicap. I hate, like, you should probably say the same things, because you don't have a disability that keeps you from stopping the things that you've achieved, as a Paralympian. And I have played, professional baseball and football at the highest levels and things, and I just want to be known as a guy without legs. So I don't want to be known as handicapped or disabled, because they lump us into that. If you're black, you're black. If you're white, you're white. But if you're handicapped, it's such a range of diversity and disability and ability of, you could have a small bit of autism, or you could be completely, off the radar as far as what your disability is. And it's not fair that we're all lumped into that. But to get back to the question, I just got tired of sitting around and watching my friends do the fun things at recess. And or PE or whatever you would call it as breaks. And then there were after school activities. I'm like, man, I think I can do this. And I just started little bits at a time, working with a tennis ball to learn how to play baseball, which is like the equivalent of cricket, and working with a Nerf football, American football, to learn how to catch and throw, the equivalent to, I think you call it gridiron over there, or American football, and then just starting basketball and wrestling and all these different things that I found out I had the advantage in certain areas because I know, what to do, especially in wrestling. I knew what to do against you leggies, but you leggies don't know what to do against a guy with no legs. So it's like, haha, advantage me. So there are advantages to, I had always had to look at the positive and look at the things that I could do. There are no, how do you play sports for dummies books, and how do you coach a guy without legs to swing a baseball bat, and how do you coach a guy without legs to shoot a basketball or play volleyball. And so I had a lot of good coaches and people that, just helped me along the way. And it's been great to see adaptive sports come along. But for a guy that's 52, all I had was regular sports. And it was either you play well enough to make the team, or you sit back and wish, oh man, I should sell pencils on a street corner.
But do you think that adversity made you the stronger person that you are today? Because, like you said, it was either take it on head on, or like you say, feel sorry for yourself.
Yeah, and you can mope and sit around, and I've had my ups and downs, but I use sports to make me not handicapped, make me not disabled. And then when people started watching me and seeing the successes, it's a good feeling when they're staring at you in a positive way and cheering for you and thinking, oh my gosh, how can this man do this? And you get those accolades, as opposed to in my day-to-day life when it's very personal and I don't like to be stared at and people are always looking at me. And especially if I go to the beach or something like that, where it's not a normal situation to see a guy without legs walking around on the beach, I get a little self-conscious about that. But sports has really, it's given me that chip on my shoulder and that, like, I can do anything that I want to do. And you try and fail, and you fail a lot to get to where you want to be. And that's just how my life has been, lots of triumph, but the failures along the way to go little by little to get what's taken me for sports and a television career and, all over the country speaking and the things that I get to do now that I just pinch myself that at 52, I'm still playing American football at a flag football level against NFL stars. And I work out with minor league teams and take batting practice and shag balls, and just spent a few weeks with a very famous minor league baseball player named Tim Tebow over on this stateside that it was wonderful. He was playing NFL football and he's trying to get to the major leagues, and just a great guy who loves God. And so, I'm still living the dream. I'll do it as long as I can. I know my shoulders of both rotator cuffs have been, surgically repaired. Elbow's been fixed, because you're not meant to run on your arms. I'm sure your upper body is, but when you get to my age, the things start breaking and falling apart, and they keep saying, stop playing sports. And I'm like, I love sports,
But that point you raised there, David, that you are quite, I won't say how to put it this way, but intimidated in the outside world, because it surprises me, because you've got that presence of mind and you've also had that illustrious career in television. It surprises me that you shun away from it a little bit, or is it because you want to separate what is your private life from your professional?
It really is. And as I've been speaking, I've learned, which is, as I'm sure you have in your endeavors, people want to know the secret stuff. They want to know, well, how do you get in the shower? Or how do you drive? Or how do you do this? It's how do you walk around? Do you use your crutches or a wheelchair in your house? The things that they want to know. And it's like, there are the public, me and you, and there's the private ones where I'm walking around on my butt and I know nobody's staring at me, so I can just climb up on things and I can cook breakfast for the kids, or I could do, the things that I used to do before shoulder surgery of doing laundry, and, I'm out driving around running errands and things like that. And, because you don't see a guy without legs a lot, you do see them coming back from war most of the time, that from, all over the country, we've got, the men and women that really have served, and I'm proud to play football with them. I really enjoy playing for the Wounded Warrior Amputee football team, but it's that every day of your life, people are going to look at you and see you differently just because they're looking at you. And then they're going to feel sorry for you. And then they're going to go, oh, what a poor, sad case. Or, they just have that look, or they say the things. My kids and I hear it all the time. We play a game where we can hear the weirdest things. But, the reality is I try to focus when I'm playing sports. Yes, I know you're looking at me, and I know all eyes are on me, and I like to rise to the occasion. But in my personal life, when I'm with my kids, doing things, we're aware of it, I guess, would be the most cognitive term. You're aware of it. You're constantly knowing that you can't pick your nose because they're going to say, oh, look at that legless guy, and then he picked his nose or something. Like, you're constantly aware that people are always watching you out in the world.
But would you not agree that people need to be, in their consciousness, come to modern times? Because, like you attested to, in the 1960s, you were kind of put aside and kind of put into hospitals and kind of shunned away. Whereas with the likes of social media, television, you name it, disabilities, you could just type it in and find it on the internet. So shouldn't people be moving into the modern times of how they perceive disability?
Yeah, I think, and it's like, if you decide to cross the line and become a public motivational speaker, then you're out there for everything, and you get the good and the bad. And I just recently, I don't know if you saw that post, I recently did an interview with a very famous football player here in the United States on the New England Patriots. His name is Rob Gronkowski. They call him Gronk. Big, huge tight end, fun-loving guy, just fun to be around. You guys have a lot of athletes that are like that. And I did the interview. Before I left the parking lot of the New England Patriots field, somebody had tweeted my photo of me and Gronk sitting there laughing, having a fun time. And then a website picked it up. And then suddenly people were posting, where's the dude's legs, and horrible, mean things, just, and some funny. Some said it looked like Tyrese Lannister, or one of them said I look like Lieutenant Dan from Forrest Gump, or mixed martial arts was a pretty funny one. So, you realize that I've had bullying all my life, and now that I'm more public, it's at a higher level when you see thousands of people commenting on something, some funny. Again, I have a good sense of humor, but I didn't know about it until my kids' friends were getting texts from their friends saying, hey, your dad's all over Twitter with Gronk, and they're saying mean things, and you see it, and they're like, Dad, does this bother you? And I'm like, it's no different than, when kids said things that when I was a little kid, or would make fun of you, or, it's just, you have to have tough skin. But to your point, I'm learning that the more I open up with the private stuff, if you see the videos of me walking in the snow, you see videos where a car blocked me in and I couldn't get my wheelchair in, and I had to climb out of my car on a wet ground, soaking my butt to get into my car and back up. And I videotaped that, and you start sharing these things, and suddenly they explode. And it's like, people don't care about sports. No, they care about, how do you get on a stool to get up, to get to the sink, to do this? How do you get gas in your car? What's it like how do you skateboard on your arm? So I'm learning to come to terms that the more I open up with my private life, it helps people to understand what my life truly is. And I always say when I speak, I live in your world, you don't live in mine. So people don't understand what it's like to be on my butt the entire time and walk on my arms, and how can you play sports, and do women want to date you? Does that scare them away? All those things, the questions that they have when I speak, it's like I can just, insert question A here and B and there, because they all have the same fascination with, and, I've had them say, how do you go to the bathroom? And can you have sex? One football player thought he'd be funny and say, hey man, can you have sex? And I said, why are you asking? So, but you have to have a sense of humor. And I've always had that. And I think some people, it may put them off a bit because of my sense of humor, where I'll take a picture with my upper body coming out of a statue of an alligator, and I'll post it and say, see, you got to be careful with the zoo. The alligators will eat your legs off. Or, just different things that I do that may shock people. But it's like, what are you supposed to do? How are you supposed to deal with something? If you can't make fun of yourself, you shouldn't make fun of others. Not that I do, but you have to have a good sense of humor if you're going to survive with something as extreme as what I have to deal with. And I know you go through the same thing, with people. It's not the norm to not have a body walking upright. So if you're in a wheelchair, you're on crutches, you have no legs, which mine is the extreme. It's a captivating moment. It's just live TV that they don't normally get. So I understand it. I'm trying to come to terms now that I'm more, people want to know, well, how can you motivate me? I don't care about the sports. How can I get up? And I'm like, well, you always worry about your appearance. Well, try not having legs. You don't think you look beautiful today? I don't have any legs. Get over yourself. You try to think about things that are minute and small in the realm of things compared to, like, I wouldn't want to be any other way. I've lived an amazing life that has taken me to play American football in Ireland and Australia and New Zealand, and to try out for professional teams and to win Emmys and to rub elbows with, Tiger Woods and LeBron James and Beckham and people that you run into in my line of work. It's pretty cool. So I while people say, do you wish you had legs? Do you wish you would have tried? I just say no. I don't know any other way. So this is just me.
But my next question for you, Dave, is probably links well to what you just raised there. Do you think back in the day that you tried out for the Dallas Cowboys, there was an element of them trying to use it as a publicity stunt to a certain extent, or am I reading into that too much?
I think it really wasn't much of a publicity stunt until I showed up, and then all the people that were covering the event suddenly, turned on me. Literally yesterday, I had a man email my website and say, can you reach out to me? So I called him yesterday. I'm like, well, yes. And he's like, I photographed you when you tried out for the Dallas Cowboys. I retired a few years ago. It was one of the most amazing moments of my life. He said, do you remember that? And I said, kind of, and he goes, you ran the 40-yard dash, which is, do the conversion for England. But I ran on my arms. There were thousands of players trying out. Everyone stopped and watched me. And at the last second, when I crossed the line, they just applauded. And it was just like this emotional moment. Like, I even kind of thinking about it now. And he's like, I took those pictures. I sold them to the tabloids, to the Inquirer, to the Globe, to all these things. I made a lot good money off of you. And he said, but I always wondered what happened to you. And I reached out and I found you. And he's like, praise God for what you've done. I'm going to send you a couple of these pictures. And I'm like, wow, when you make an impact on somebody and 30 years later they track you down, it's like, so now I hope that I can get out, tell my message, talk about the goods, the ups, the downs, the low points, the really low points, and try to show that, people with disabilities or handicaps or whatever we're called, we are just like you. We are you. We cry. We hurt. Some of us hurt more because of what we have to keep internally, of the cross that we bear of physical limitation in certain aspects. I know my limits, and I'm realistic now that I'm older and I can't do the same things. But I try to go out, put a good show, inspire people, and leave them with something that they can tangibly take away on how to deal with just their day-to-day issues that come up. And like I say, if I was blind, if I was deaf, like, I could have it way, way worse off than most people, or just what country I lived in. If I'm fighting every day to survive for two countries battling over I don't know what, and I just live on a dirt floor, like, what kind of life would you choose to have? So I'm pretty happy with how things have turned out for me.
And kind of moving on to when you went into baseball, what do you think the managers saw in you to give you that 3-week contract at the minor leagues?
I don't think they believed it at first. I had the owner of the team had a father who owned a major league team over here, and his dad had a midget pinch hit or a short person or little person, however you want to phrase it, and they batted one at bat, and this is like in the 40s. And so his son owned that team, and he's like, hey, Dave, would you like to come out? I'm like, yeah, but I'm not to get a walk. I'm a player. So I went out. I happened to go out at the same time of two very famous American baseball players were trying to make comebacks, Darryl Strawberry and Jack Morris. And Daryl was battling his own demons with drugs and the things that he'd battled. And all of a sudden, all the media attention was on Dave. And Daryl Strawberry could do his thing for 3 weeks. And we became very close. And we'd go have lunch and we'd talk. And we're still friends to this day. And he made it back to the Yankees and won a World Series. And he always said, the woman that's writing my book talked to him. And he always said, if I hadn't met Dave, I was going to walk away from baseball that day. So again, to make an impact on a major leaguer and a guy that really had everything and kind of threw it away. So the managers were like, well, we might let you get one at bat. And then suddenly they threw me in to play second base. And then the next game I'm starting at second base and leading off the game. And I look around and Daryl Strawberry's behind me and Jack Morris is on the mound. And I'm like, wow, I've done it. Because I had two dreams when I was a kid. One was to be on TV and to work in TV sports, and the other was to play professional baseball. And I had that on tape when I was a little kid. So it's like, to have that and to achieve those dreams, it's like anything is possible if you just work hard enough for it, you know, and we can overcome, you've overcome, like, and you can get the accolades, you can be a Paralympic, and you can, you know, continue to have an amazing, impactful life despite the odds. It's just you need the people along the way, the coaches that believe in you, the managers. You know, I've tried every sport. I've even tried soccer. I thought I'll be a goalie, but, you know, stopping them with my face isn't good. And you know, a little bit over my head, but, you know, but I'd anticipate those, you know, the penalty kicks. I think I'd anticipate them a little better. But I'm not up against, you know, trying – I just started sled hockey, so I'm playing hockey at age 52. I'm still enjoying these kind of things. And I'd like to open minds and let these coaches and people see, like, he has no legs and he's able to contribute at an able-bodied sport. So when I go work out with these minor league teams, you know, and all of a sudden – and I've worked out with major league teams, and they suddenly come around the batting cages, and they're standing there and staring at you and leaning at you, and you're kind of, again, you're thinking, the spotlight's on me. I've got to hit these balls, and you hit the balls, and you get the oohs and the ahs, and you get, you know, the guys that come up, and it's just like, you're the ones making millions, and yet you want to talk to me. So I'm very humbled by it. You know, again, as you know, when you're trying to sell yourself, it's like you get to play this role and you kind of get to do this thing, but it's still very humbling to think about where I came from, you know, a very poor kid, to coming full circle of, you know, being able to inspire and motivate people.
And you touch upon, Dave, obviously with your disability, you're putting a heavy burden on your shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say physically more so than actually emotionally now. Do you think it is more so a problem for you than, say, anybody that has competed in, say, any Paralympic discipline? Because like myself, to attest to, I'm starting to get those aches and pains in the shoulder. But obviously you're doing not only the sport, but the physical demands of just moving about on a daily basis.
Yeah, I mean, I was so groggy from the medicines. I should have documented it, but I had a rotator cuff surgery in March. And you know, if you had rotator cuff surgery, or your friends or someone in your family, you'd wear, you know, a sling, and you could probably get around in your chair maybe a little bit, or use your leg to kind of move. But when you have your arm like this, so that gives me one arm and no legs to get around, to get off of bed, to get into the shower, to shave, to do all these kind of things. Like, it's very challenging, you know, and dealing with the pain, but knowing that I can't do anything with one arm. So although the doctors say, don't move it, don't do this, don't do that, within a few days, I was up and moving around and trying to, you know, at least get to a place where I can hop up on a tub and kind of roll in and fall into the tub, or use, you know, stools to get, you know, how do you go to the bathroom? It's like all these things that you don't think about. If you have two legs and two arms, well, you're down to one arm and no legs. And you know, I'm very blessed. I had great caretaking and a lot of love and support to get me to this point where I can get out. I'm still hitting, you know, I was out hitting, batting, and doing stuff. I'm not 100%. I am going to be playing an American football game with flags. Like, do they have touch rugby? Do they have flag rugby or anything like that? Well, it's the equivalent of that, and I'll be playing in Lambeau Field, which is a professional NFL stadium, before 75,000 people at halftime. So, again, I need to sort of get in shape so this fat butt can run up and down the field a little bit. So, but it is that's a great question, because people don't really think of like, okay, you're going to have shoulder surgery, I'll just walk around in a sling. But, I laid on a couch for a few days till I could kind of get up and slide my butt around just to get around and use this arm and start, getting to the point where I can, feed myself and bathe myself and shave and pick up my kids. And, I was driving within 3 weeks. I wasn't supposed to be driving, but, I figured out a way to put step stools to get into the car, and got into my car, and it's hand control. So, I was able to go and get my kids and not really put that much of a dent, with all that. But it's I've had it 3 times, and I hope I don't have to have it again. But I guess I'd have to stop playing sports in order to take that element out of the way.
But then you raised that good point, Dave. With it being strapped up, I'd have thought obviously, I'm fortunate enough to have a prosthetic leg, so that wouldn't be so much of I won't say inconvenience, but so much problematic. But for obviously for you, if you've only got that utilization of one arm, I'd have thought it'd put more pressure on the, we'll say, quote unquote, fitter shoulder.
Yeah, I mean, my left one is done okay. Luckily, it's only been operated on once. My primary right has been twice, and it's just because, throwing baseballs and footballs and things, continuing at my age, which you're not meant to do. And I have backed off, and I'll continue to back off. But, it's such a great feeling, especially now that I'm working with little kids at these we have baseball camps for disabled kids, the D3 day. And it's kids that are physically challenged that just come out, work with the minor leaguers, which is the lower level of baseball, but still professional, that they get up to that tier. And, we just play baseball and throw the ball around and do some fielding and stuff. And when you see those children with the smiles, I want to be able to continue to walk with them and throw with them and just show them, hey, look what I did with my life. There's no reason that, if you have certain abilities, it doesn't have to be sports, but you can continue that fight and continue that battle to go and fit into society and make a contribution.
And you were talking about there, Dave, prior, that you were going to be doing a flag football tournament in Lambeau Field. I'm assuming it's going to be in probably the beginning of the NFL season, as opposed to the colder month.
It's November 11th at halftime, and I think it's going to be really, really cold, which, I played football in Minnesota. Minnesota, for people in your country who are listening, is very cold. We're talking 10, 20, 30 below Fahrenheit of, freezing. And yeah, what that does to my bum is very, very unpleasant. So I'm hoping it's November 11th that they either clear the snow off, because it's a legendary cold field. But, I think the energy and my, everything's going to take over for a few minutes, and I can go and sit my butt in a nice hot tub or soak it in a boiling hot pan or something to heal up.
Well, I would say, like you say, it's the euphoria, nostalgia of what that's represents.
Well, I mean, it's been my entire life always wanting to play professional level things, and yes, granted, it's a flag thing, but most of the guys that I'm playing with are wounded warrior veterans. So they're playing on one leg. They're like you. They're playing on an artificial leg. They're playing with one arm and, throwing and catching, and it's just amazing. And then this fat old legless guy comes running on the field to play defense, and I play quarterback a little. I'll throw a pass or two, but I'm already anticipating it to be one of the greatest moments of my life. And I've had a lot of good ones. When you're playing before 50,000 people in Australia in a football game, or, you're getting announced at a minor league baseball game to come to bat and those kind of things. So it just shows you again that you can do anything, and to continue to do the things that I do sometimes freaks me out, that it gets me to where I've gotten to be. And that's why I said, I hope it's not offensive. And actually, this is good for you, if it bounces out for you. Have you seen the movie Forrest Gump with Tom Hanks?
Yes.
See, I consider myself Forrest Gimp. And because I've done all these crazy things that I've done with, Michael Jordan and Tiger Woods and all these athletes that I've crossed paths with and interviewed. And so I don't know if that is offensive to people. Are we allowed to say it? Because we are, in this political
you're always going to upset somebody, aren't you?
Yeah, but I'm sure you have a sense of humor about
Oh
Your
no,
sister.
I take that with lightheartedness. I
No,
think
your friends. You know. So again, it's one of those things where I'm trying. It's a good way to describe it, but is it too offensive to people in this? You know, especially now where everything is, put under a microscope. To what does he mean by that? Or that's offensive to handicapped people, and
I think I'm very similar to you and Dave in that essence in terms of depending on how I feel, I might sometimes do it deliberately just to see what reaction I can get. I
yeah,
think the story brings to mind, this has been about 6 years ago when I was in the British volleyball team. We were just, multiple disabilities, chatting away, and we were joking around. And I think I noticed somebody like eavesdropping and getting shocked by it. And I think we ramped it up a little bit more, but we were just messing around. And you could see they wanted to probably say something. Thinking, well, one, you're being a little bit nosy. I could come to you and say, well, why are you eavesdropping on my conversation in the first place? But we deliberately we were just messing around with not being like banter, as we would call it. We're just joking around, messing around with each other, using these terms loosely. And I guess somebody, well, like you said, PC, they interpret it in a different light. And we were at tracksuits on anyway, so you can't tell that we've got disabilities. So it's probably that assumption, well, they're being offensive to disabled people. You're thinking, well, you are being very cynical because you don't know what we're having to deal with.
Yeah. But now in this day and age, again, where a race can use a certain word and use that word, and it's okay, it's acceptable for those in that race. So it's like, are we in the handicap world entitled to use certain words? And again, not wanting to upset, especially as a public speaker, they could say, oh, I heard you on this podcast and you said you were Forrest Gump and my son's disabled and that really was offensive to me, and kind of thing. And if you don't take it, like the things that I did as a kid to freak people out, oh my gosh, I would bury myself in the sand at the beach and people would walk by and then I would just jump out at them, or I would crawl out of the water and I'd be like, shark, shark, or I'd put one end of me at the end of a school bus and my legs at the other end of the school bus when I wore artificial legs. And cars would drive by and just, they'd come out to my coaches and say, what's going on? There's somebody causing, chaos. Or my friend would put me in a shopping cart and push me in a shopping cart, put on sunglasses, pretend he's blind. And I'd have the stick working in front of us, like we were, again, the youth and the innocence and the, stuff that I wouldn't do today. But again, the things I did then helped me almost to get acceptance, because my teammates would take my artificial legs and stuff them in the rafters. Or I had a teammate one time urinate on my head in the shower while I was showering. I turned around and punched him right where the urine was coming from. And my coach comes out and they're like, what happened? And they're like, oh, Beefo urinated on Dave's head. Well, what did Dave do? Well, he hit him in the beep. The coach just said, justice served, and turned around and walked away.
Yeah.
In this day and age, we'd be suspended and there'd be, all this stuff of like, he picked on my kid and, all this kind of stuff. So, I've been a part of good jokes. I've been the butt of jokes. I try to create the humor. But it's tough now in this day and age because people are so taken aback by seeing you missing a leg or me. They're just like, do I touch you? Do I talk to you? Do I look at you? Do I look down? Do I not? Do I just look you at the eye? I never, it's all these things that you get that they're uncomfortable with. So it's up to you and I to educate the world. Like, it's okay to be a little different. It's okay to ask the questions. It's okay. I want the young kids to say, how did you lose your legs? Or why are you like that? So they can comprehend that it's not a scary thing. It's not that's not a monster over there. It's just somebody who doesn't have legs or doesn't have a leg or missing an arm or might, have a disability, that it's not so creepy to. It makes it human. It's like what I've done with my toes. I have 6 toes. 4 of them on the left side, 2 of them on the right side. The right side, as a child, I named Jojo, and it can wave, and it looks like little funny foo-foo. It's just 2 toes. And then the 4 toes was mom and the baby toes. So I would explain this story to my friends that the husband moved out, so the mom has 3 kids on this side. The 2 went to college, became doctors. Joe and Joe are doctors. And it made such a weird, creepy thing become funny and humorous. And so when I go back to high school, and I went back last year for my reunion, and everybody was like, how's JoJo? How's Mama? So the impact of the ice-breaking kind of things that I did as a kid, which I'm not a genius, so I don't know where I came up with this, but the coping mechanisms that we have internally when we lose a leg, or when we have this immense internal way of overcoming such major things. And I would like to be able to teach that to the able-bodied people, that you have this inside you to deal with your problems, to deal with situations that you don't need to feel sorry for me. I feel sorry for you if you can't overcome your demons, or you can't handle the pressures of a job or family or school or these kind of things that, again, you look at someone else and go, man, I don't even have it half as bad as him. When I meet these pro athletes, it's like they feel like, wow, I don't have it. My leg doesn't ache today, or my arm isn't so bad because this 50-year-old guy is out here hitting baseballs. I got nothing to complain about. So if they can see that and take a piece of me, and when they see what you're doing, and they hear your podcast, and they can take away this information that's really critical to help people deal with things, and overcome just the day-to-day basic things.
Dave, I'm intrigued now. You touched upon earlier that you wanted to get into television. Why television specifically?
I figured that if I was on TV, people basically see you from the waist up. So, I could have made, and I did make a name for myself, behind the scenes. I was working on camera, and then ESPN called me in Minnesota and said, come. So I came here. But now I'm doing on-camera stuff for the Disability Channel, and I'm loving it. Like, covering a Super Bowl, covering big events, covering golf tournaments, meeting big-time people, meeting, all these people that you can get information from. Well, how did they do this? What was their inspiration? Things like that. So I always thought that being on TV would just let people see me in this little box, that I'm normal. I don't have to worry about legs. I don't have to worry about, wearing, dress pants and things like that. I can wear shorts or whatever, and, it's nice. But now when I'm on camera, I want them to see that I don't have legs. I want them to see that the athletes are getting down with me and opening up to me. And it's like they're more comfortable with me, because I'm not asking questions about who are you sleeping with, or what about this, you drove drunk, or you hit your wife, or all these horrible stories that the other media can. I always try to look for the positive and go, hey, Gronk, you're doing a Tide commercial. My butt's on the ground all the time. Is it going to get these things clean? And I pull out the Tide Pods, and he laughed, and it's good fun. Tim Tebow, I said, if you were playing football and I was a legless guy coming at you to tackle you, what would you do? And he's laughed. He's like, I don't know what I would have done. And he laughed. And you get these guys, you see different aspects, because you get them to see that I'm just a dude. You're just a dude. When you ask your questions, people I feel like we have a good connection here, as far as, almost like a friendship, just because you and I have been through so much of the similar things that we can understand things that outsiders, can't see or have experienced, as far as, the persecutions. You get it double, being a person of color and having a disability. It's like, we experience different things based on, what our world is like. And so to overcome what I've overcome, what you've overcome, I hope people can see that and realize that, man, the things that we take for granted are menial compared to what we have to overcome when you've got one arm and trying to recover from shoulder surgery, or you're walking on icy things, and it's not your artificial leg wants to buckle, or move or slip a different way because your foot, your real ankle, reacts differently than a robotic ankle. All these things people don't think about, that you've got to think about walking. You don't think about walking when you have two legs. You have to think about walking when you have one leg, keeping your balance, looking ahead, walking around, looking for wet spots, just in case, the things that I did when I was on crutches that you probably had to do in your life. That, again, the little things that people don't know about us, but yet we should share with them so they can understand the struggles that we have.
I know this is probably a little bit off-topic question, Dave. Would you working for the Disability Sports Channel, what is your take with, you could say, the US being a little bit slower with the uptake of distributing the Paralympics? Obviously, the size of the country, it should do a lot better than it actually does in a sporting context.
It really should. And, I even though I'm not with ESPN anymore, I give ABC and ESPN a lot of credit because they bought the rights to it. However, I don't think they do enough. I honestly, I think they do a few things a night, and then they do a highlight show on the weekend. But for the athletes that are putting in the sweat and the blood, it's a much bigger event worldwide, just like the World Cup is, and just like soccer is, and just like, I think sometimes we at the U.S. are slow to the take on certain things, and I really wish that it could be this magnificent event that I've seen worldwide with the pomp and the circumstances and the way that they treat the athletes like they're Olympians and they get to have their Olympics. And I think over here we have that, but it's just not to the level. I don't know if we have too much technology where we're just too absorbed with our own world and our own things and caring too much about the Kardashians and all these, things that are important to people over here. I just know that the support, and there's so many amazing athletes, so many veterans, so many people that have overcome so much to get that. I just wish it would become more mainstream and more like, wow, cool, I got to turn it on because these guys are, running the, this race or something like that. I mean, as horrible as what ended up happening, Oscar Pistorius was a great ambassador to get that moving in the right direction. And I don't know if that caused a setback worldwide or anything like that, but I can't use the excuse of getting away with anything anymore because I don't have any legs. I was just say, oh, I can get away. I don't have any legs. But Oscar kind of pushed that to the ultimate level tragically. So, I hope it would continue to grow. I wish I was in shape to, give you guys a run for your money in those sports. Like I didn't have those opportunities then again, because the closest thing I ever tried out was the Olympic baseball team, and getting to that level with a Barry Bonds and a Mark McGuire and all those guys that were at this camp with me, is very awesome. But I don't know if I hope we get to the point where it's as big as it is, worldwide.
But do you think, in fairness to, well, we could probably say the population at large, be it not just the US, but globally, do you think maybe, and we'll talk about track and field more specifically now, do you think it hurts that it's with the Olympics themselves, it's be it male and female, there is 100 meters, whereas when the Paralympics is concerned, and this is off the top of my head, I think it's upwards of 5 events.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it goes as deep as that? It's because it's so complex to be able to have to actually explain why each person is in this event.
Yeah, I mean, it is complex because it's not just the sports aren't black and white. A basketball team has to have a certain number of persons with severe disabilities, or there are. It goes for all those, I think a lot of those sports. So it's like, well, am I watching the true volleyball championship, or is this the volleyball championship with the A, B, and C type players, or, those kind of things. And, I think it's just the education, and I hope people aren't ignorant to think that the Special Olympics are the Paralympics either. You sometimes think, oh, let me just lump in everybody. Oh, that, it's Paralympics. And, and I wonder if having it so close to the Olympics, I know they want the venues, but are people burnt out on the Olympics? So like, why couldn't you maybe alternate it so it's not competing directly, get a nice city? I know it's already there. The venues are good and they're ready to do it, but it's like, man, I just watched 14 days of track and field and all this stuff. Am I going to watch another 6 days? I don't, is it too much Olympics all at once? So I don't know what they could do to help over here.
I think I would be contrary to that with the London Games, because I think that little respite of, it was at least a week between the Olympics and the Paralympics, kind of built the anticipation back up again. But I don't know if that represents because the actual Paralympic movement was coming home. That brought it back up a bit more, because the crowds have not been the same before or since. Okay, China's got their own take on it. That's very much, as my family like to attest to, it was the how did they word it? very much the plastic brigade, as in they marched in very military, like before the event starts and march back out. So okay, that's not a true representation of fans. Whereas I think with the UK, I think I was a little bit skeptical in the run up to it, because I was like, in past with any sport I'd done, it would be family members and a little bit more. And then I think more typically when I went into volleyball, gosh, at venues you might have, I don't know, we'll be generous and say maximum 50 people. And in London I played in front of 10,000 people. So I think there was an essence of maybe some people weren't able to get Olympic tickets, so they
wanted that experience.
That experience to be able to get the buzz of what it is. Some obviously going to be friends and family, but then some were maybe sports fans. They just wanted to see sport from there and probably some were patriotic, want to get behind the country. Whereas I think you probably could attest to in any games anyway.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point, and I also think, some countries there are still countries that suppress disability and don't do anything to help people. So it's like these countries like China and things that you've heard horrible stories about. Like, I don't know what they're putting out there, but in African countries and things like that, we have a long way to come to make to globally educate everybody to get legs built for people in these countries and to get them so they're not dragging around on the ground and dirt and things like that, or destroyed, or the horror stories that you hear of people with disabilities that has happened over the last 50 years or so. So I think thank God for people like you that do what you do and get people to talk about the things and you educate. It's not just about sport, but it's about psychology and how you can help people and how we can overcome certain things. So I know we have a lot of work to do, and that's just also to get the athletes to get the respect that I would think it's a better feeling for the fan to come and see these amazing athletes that have overcome so much more than athletes that are just some of them blood doped and pumped and things like that they're just, that's their job to do. Whereas these Paralympians, they have to work and do things and have a life and get in their practices, and some of the funding isn't always there for the things that they want to do, and yet they still figure out ways to do it and come together. And so I hope it grows. I really, it's not having it as a child and watching it getting to where it's getting there, but I don't think we're where we need to be as far as it globally.
But I think you'd attest to this, Dave. I think as a disabled person doing sport, you don't want to be seen as somebody doing sport with a disability, but be looked upon like any professional athlete, Olympian, be looked at, I'm here solely because of my ability.
Yeah, that's exactly what you don't want people to pity you. You don't want people to feel sorry for you. You want them to go, wow, look at that guy. Look at what he can do, and I hope that people can see the old video of me playing football and baseball when I was in my heyday and doing the things that I could do to turn those heads and make people realize, holy cow, people can make a contribution and do things. And now the impact I'm making as a speaker and on the kids with our Disability Dream and Do and the Wounded Warrior, amputee football team that I play on, it still gives me that platform to show the world that, despite the odds, anybody can overcome anything to achieve the greatest goals. And I'm the poster child of that. I'm like I said, I pinch myself for the things that I've been able to do and continue to do, and the blessings that I've had that, disabilities don't open a lot of doors. And my disability really, for me, I've catapulted it. So, you can call me an amputee, you can call me legless, you can, I just don't take pity on me. I'm not handicapped. I'm not anybody that you should feel sorry for. And I just hope that the ignorance and, tolerance and acceptance and stuff will continue to get better.
But then going forward, Dave, now, what would be something that you haven't accomplished within television that you'd like to do? Would it be to be able to see the Paralympics be that figurehead that you portray? Is that something you'd like to be actually at the venue and commentating yourself?
I would love to. I don't know why they don't get more. Well, I guess the reason is there aren't many disabled people in media. There are no legless guys in media that I know of. But it would be nice to see, and I could get educated real quick on sports as far as being, because the commentators, that they don't live and breathe track and field. They have to have somebody in their ear going, okay, he's done this in the past, and he lost to the Russian 6 months ago by 2.2 millimeters, and those kind of things that that they tell you so you look good. But yeah, that would be cool to be I think the Olympics is in LA, and this
I can't remember which way around it is, but yeah, it is. I can't remember which way they selected it.
How cool would it be to be a part of that, and to but who knows what the future holds? I'm just I'm trying to get my speaking business going, and get it out there. When you're new and you're competing with everybody in the world, as far as what's your story, what makes you so special? Again, there are people that are more heroic than me and that have done more amazing things than me. I just go out and I lived my life, and that's what I want to tell people. Just go live your life, and don't go for everything you want to do. Don't sit back so in 20 years you're like, man, if I'd have just gone for that job, or if I'd have just taken that class, or if I'd have just asked that girl out, or all those things that we get so apprehensive about. Just go and do. And the worst thing you're going to hear is no, or you're going to fail, or you're going to fall down a few times, or you're going to take that test or that law test, or work on these things, and you just got to continue to do it, and to work at life. You can't be happy in life if you're not achieving your goals and having some sort of what's next for me. So for me, yeah, that'd be great to be that big, to be able at the Paralympics and do commentary and talk about. How long are you planning to compete?
I retired. What are we? 2018, 5 years ago.
They all say that. They Michael Phelps says that. Don't you get that itch?
Yes and no. I had weird ones with that itch you speak about. I had it for watching the Winter Games in Sochi, which makes no sense whatsoever because I never competed in a Winter Game. But I think it's always deep down. I don't know. I
like, is volleyball? How bad would it be to get you in shape for volleyball to get to that level?
The British team, I'll be in fairness to them, they may qualify in the future, but I don't see it. There's been talk of me doing other sports, but it's like you touched upon, it's a psychology. If you're not mentally right to compete at that level, I would say there's no point, but you're on a hiding to nothing, because you're always going to have that element of doubt when the event is finished. Well, or the what if I had done a little bit more? What if I'd have started? So it's more. I'd love to be involved in some capacity, probably on the outside. So I don't know, maybe team oriented, because I know what the men and women sacrifice to get to that level of competition. I think when I've spoken to kids and schools in the past, they simplify things. Well, why did you retire? Why don't you keep going into the future? Yeah, well, it was that easy. Every man and his dog would be able to do it. It's you've got to be in the right mental state. You've got to be able to take the knocks, obviously physically and mentally. And I think I reached a point where I think it was enough. I think physically I'll still do it to myself, even at a lower level, which some people would probably say was a bit psychotic in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, what is your overall drive to want to do to that to your body on not on a daily basis as much, but why are you wanting to do that? It's probably, you're probably similar. It's that sporting sense of being. It's
that high, that competition, the camaraderie, just all the good stuff. It's so tough to walk away. I mean, I don't even say I'm close to what I'm not half the man I used to be, even though I'm already a half a man. But you get the joke, right?
Mm.
No, some people might not get. I'll have to explain that to your viewers and listeners. But um, I get that my body won't let me do those things anymore, and it's one of those things where it's trying to play hockey against kids that are half my age, and I love crashing into them and flying down the ice and snot coming out of my nose, and I'm just this big old guy coming at him. But I know that that Father Time is one ticking, and two, your body doesn't recover as quickly from intense workouts or long stretches of physical activity and things like that. And I mean, you're still a baby, so you got a few years to have. But it got me where I want to be, and now I still want to say relevant. I want people to see that I'm still mobile. I can still do the things. And again, when I'm on the stage, I'm able to move around and do my talking and speaking, and because people are so mesmerized again by this guy with no legs. It's just that thing that it's not the norm. Even though I feel normal, and on the outside, people look at you and me and they go, they're handicapped or they're disabled. They don't realize we are athletes. You will always be an athlete. Everything you did in your life to get you where you are, you had certain goals. You had certain internal things that you pushed more than your friends. Then you took time away from the free time and things like that to train and to work hard and to hone your skills. And I did the same thing. So again, when you judge a book by its cover, people will look at us and go, they're just going to peg you as this guy with one leg hopping around, or me, or whatever. They don't realize what it took to get us to a higher level that nobody else out there could ever comprehend or understand unless they've, been in your shoes or my non-shoes, to be able to experience what it takes like, and knowing people are staring, yet continuing to excel, because the body's meant to do things with 2 arms and 2 legs, not 1 leg and 2 arms, or no legs and 2 arms. And so we've had to figure out the alternative ways. And now they have coaching, they have ideas, they've seen people now, they can help people adapt and do more things, as opposed to the old days where, like, well, kid, if you want to do this, I don't know how to work with you. I've never been trained for this. Like, so we've gotten much better in the education also, and the training and things like that. And I really hope that, the Paralympics can really, continue to grow and give athletes and people that I consider not disabled the opportunities in life.
But I think that notion that you mentioned, Dave, with people not knowing what to do with you, that's a little bit of a cop-out, because it's like, well, I think people ask me, how do you, say more specifically with the fitness business, adapt to disabilities? Well, you touched upon it there. It's an adaptation I've had to do out for life. So to me, it doesn't matter if you're in a wheelchair, able-bodied, you are going to adapt that situation of training to the individual. And that's what probably some trainers do it wrong. They have that, how would I word it? Plan A, I'm going to give this to everybody, and it doesn't work. Okay, for some it's good. Say, we'll be generous, say it worked for 50% of the population and not for the others. Whereas you tweak it a little bit and take account for the displeasure of certain things that people don't like.
Right.
I think it comes back to the roots of us as individuals. We've had to overcome some sort of adversity. I don't really like it being called that, because it's not really adversity. It's life. I've had to overcome a hurdle, so to speak, that's in the way. You talked about it earlier on in the episode with being able to be with your peers. Mine is very much the same. It's okay. It's a slight different story, but I had to overcome that hurdle, adversity, to be able to be like one of the guys. Okay, they probably don't perceive it as that even to this day. 25 years on, but my family talk about it. You could see the wheels going around in my head. How can I adapt this circumstance so into my favor? And I talk about that. You would term it adversity. It's me trying to overcome a problem that's arisen. It's okay, let me find the solution to the problem. And I think I've always been some way that inclined, maybe a little bit less so in my adulthood because that's how the nature of the being is. You get a little bit lazier. It's like, well,
Yeah.
really need to be done. Let me think about that. No, okay, well, we'll put it this way. Whereas as a youngster, you want to be involved in that community, so you're gonna maybe go beyond what is the norm to be we'll say accepted into that community.
Yeah, and that's why it's great that you do, because a normal fitness trainer, what are you supposed to? You can't do deep knee bends with one leg. We don't have enough of people like you that are able to adapt and adjust, and it's getting better. I've got a buddy, David Vobora, who's got an academy in Texas that, again, with more and more veterans coming back missing body parts, there is the need for them to stay not only physically, but it helps them mentally as well. If you're an athlete, you continue to do the things that you do. You come back, you've been in war, you've lost a leg, or you've done these kind of things, and it helps. So what you're doing is really important as far as to help. And I think hopefully more trainers can think outside the box, because both you and I, people look at us and they go, oh, you're a hero, you're an inspiration, you're all this. And it's just like, we're just guys, and we lived our life. We got thrown, a bad hand in a certain way, but we were able to overcome it. And to try to live up to some of those expectations sometimes, it's like, man, I just lived my life. And if I can teach you a little bit how to overcome it and to think about it, and, we're just guys. We're just people that were, trying to live a life. I wore artificial legs for 40 years because I thought I had to be as tall as everybody and fit into society and look everybody in the eye. And, when you're carrying around dead weight like that for so long, it took its toll on my shoulders as well. But, I don't mind being in a wheelchair now. It's a different world. You do still see limitations. Everything isn't physically, especially on the East Coast. It's a very old part of the country. So there are stairs and steps, and they don't build ramps, and they have certain grandfather clause laws that businesses don't have to change, and I'm sure in England there's a lot of old buildings where they may not have made adaptations and things like that, because you don't want to ruin a castle, you don't want to ruin certain beauty of certain things, which I can understand, but just to be able to have that accessibility. So the challenges that people see on the outside, they don't know what we're doing on the inside, always having to think about, okay, you've got to climb all these steps to get onto something. It's not like you're walking with two legs. It takes its toll on you. It's not a normal process of a body.
But I think you raised a good point initially, Dave, early on, is saying you don't regret having the disability. It's kind of made you who you are today. And I think I could attest to that as well, because, there was certain elements in my life that you kind of wish that you don't, be it, probably my teens are probably the worst example of that. But if I look back upon it now, I wouldn't have been the person I am today. I wouldn't have the sporting career that I had. I probably had aspirations and dreams of getting to the elite level. But did I think it was a reality? Probably not. But then if it wasn't for the disability, those doors never would have been opened.
Absolutely. And again, it made who we have become, and you're helping people. I'm trying to help people. I mean, it's not a death sentence. It's not anything again, it freaks people out. They try to get over it, and you want to become my friend. You want to get to know me. That's cool, because I'm not, however you want to describe me. I just, hopefully my friends describe me as Dave. That's all I ever want to be known as, and not, handicapped or that legless guy or that disabled guy. It's just like, when you get to know me, they forget it. Just like you said, your friends just forget about it.
And my final question for you, Dave, before we wrap up the episode, if you have to summarize what we've been speaking about today into one sentence for people to take away, what would that be?
As cliche-ish as it sounds, just shoot for your dreams. Go for it and enjoy the ride. Because if we don't try, despite anything that's on the outside trying to battle us, you've got to fight through everything if you want successes in life and you want to have those achievements despite having a handicap, or if you're just normal, and able-bodied.
So once again, Dave, thanks for coming on the Mindset Game podcast.
Oh, I appreciate it. It was great. Thank you so much.
It's been my pleasure. And before I forget, I would really appreciate it if you would be so kind as to leave a short written review as it helps to get the podcast more notoriety and it will be more visible in future to others, and thus helping more people, which my guests and I are all about. Once again, thanks for listening, and I'll catch you next time for another episode of the Mindset Game podcast.